This Emirati entrepreneur is using an innovative technique to grow food in the desert. He's using a fish farm.
Picture this. You're standing in the heart of the Saudi Arabian desert. Heat shimmers on the horizon. Temperatures soar past 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Rain, a fantasy. Plants, dead on arrival. It's a place so dry, so brutal, it seems biologically allergic to life. But something strange is happening. Out here in a place where survival feels like rebellion, an Emirati entrepreneur is doing the unthinkable. He's farming fish. No, not near the coast, not in a greenhouse, in the middle of the sand. And it's not just working, it's rewriting everything we thought we knew about agriculture, food security, and the future of deserts. In 2023 alone, Saudi Arabia harvested over 100,000 tons of fish from facilities deep inside the desert. But they're not just raising fish, they're using them like weapons against hunger, against climate change, against the desert itself. Saudi Arabia has always existed between two great bodies of water, the Red Sea to the west, the Persian Gulf to the east, yet its heartland remains parched. One of the most water-scarce nations on Earth, 95% of its land is barren. Farming here has always been more fantasy than reality. For decades, the kingdom did what the world expected. It imported food, overfished its waters, and relied on oil. But oil wasn't infinite, and neither were the fish. By 2012, they were hauling 88,000 tons of seafood a year from their waters, but marine ecosystems were buckling. Then came Saudi Vision 2030, a bold plan to reduce oil dependence and build a sustainable future. Most people focused on NEOM, the $500 billion futuristic megacity, but the real revolution was bubbling up quietly from fish tanks in the sand. Between 2010 and 2022, Saudi Arabia's inland fish production exploded from just 17,200 tons to over 140,000. That's an 800% increase in the desert. Let that sink in. And they're not just raising hardy, heat-tolerant species. They're raising salmon, cold water fish, in a place where your phone melts in the sun. The Hale facility, smack in the center of Saudi Arabia, produces 5 million salmon juveniles annually, 100 tons of market-ready fish every year. Those salmon, they're not just surviving, they're thriving and getting exported to Japan, South Korea, even Australia. Yes, countries surrounded by oceans are importing fish from the desert. But this story isn't really about seafood. Here's the twist. Every fish is a fertilizer factory. When fish digest food, they release waste loaded with nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, the holy trinity of plant growth. Most fish farms treat this as waste to dispose of. Saudi Arabia, they treat it as liquid gold. Instead of draining it, they use it to irrigate crops. Saudi scientists ran experiments comparing crops grown with regular water versus fish water. The results? Dozlavin palms were 26% heavier, 43% juicier. Bufisol plants more than tripled in weight. Idle moisture retention? Off the charts. That fishy water was like a miracle grow serum, turning desert sand into farmland. So how do fish survive in the desert's brutal heat? With next-level tech. Facilities constantly monitor water temperature, OSCO oxygen levels, DOSI buildup, food quality, using closed-loop water circulation, advanced filtration systems, and cooling technology. They recreate ocean-like conditions miles from any shore. But it doesn't stop there. Saudi aquaculture employs 3 major irrigation systems to grow plants. D-drip irrigation delivers water directly to the roots, minimal waste. Subsurface irrigation, pipes buried in the ground beneath the soil to avoid evaporation. Micro sprinklers target individual plants and cool surrounding air. And the crown jewel? Aquaponics. That's where the fish waste feeds the plants, and the plants purify the water for the fish. A closed-loop miracle that's producing food and fertilizer simultaneously. One Hale-based facility is producing 10 tons of vegetables annually using aquaponics in one of Earth's hottest, driest regions. And then comes the next plot twist: shrimp. In 2023, Saudi Arabia produced over 66,000 tons of shrimp, nearly half of its total aquaculture yield. How? They truck seawater directly from the Red Sea. Then they use a technique called biofloc, where bacteria break down waste and shrimp feed on it. It's sustainable, efficient, and self-contained. Even algae farming is booming. At the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, researchers are growing 100 tons of dry algae biomass annually, including spirulina and chlorella, both adapted to saltwater environments. That means no freshwater use whatsoever. And this loops us back to Neom, the megacity of tomorrow. Topian, a company tied to Neom, is building one of the largest inland fish farms in the Middle East, targeting 20,000 tons of seafood a year. But it's not just about fish. That nutrient-rich water will irrigate the Neom Re-Greening Initiative, which plans to restore 3.7 million acres of land and plant 100 million native trees by 2030. These aquaculture sites aren't just producing food, they're healing the desert. The nutrient-infused water improves soil, the plants stabilize it, the trees create shade, lower ground temperature, and even raise air humidity through transpiration. Over time, the land begins to change, forming its own microclimate. A vicious cycle of heat and death becomes a virtuous cycle of growth. And the beauty of it? It's self-sustaining. Once the first roots take hold, the desert doesn't just survive. It fights back. Saudi Arabia is targeting 600,000 tons of seafood production by 2030. 250,000 of that from Naqwa alone. That's not just self-sufficiency. That's global leadership. Countries with perfect farmland, abundant rain, and coastal access are importing food from the Saudi desert. And it raises one burning question. If they can do this in Saudi Arabia, what's stopping the rest of us? Think about the Sahara, the Gobi, the Atacama. Vast dead zones, written off for centuries, could become future breadbaskets. In 2024, Saudi Arabia broke ground on a 430,000 square foot aquaponics farm in Jubail, designed to boost biodiversity, reduce water use, and increase food security. And here's the kicker. It's just one of many. Most haven't even been publicly announced. The next time someone tells you something is impossible, tell them about salmon in the desert, about shrimp farms fed by bacteria, about a country that turned fish waste into a weapon against climate collapse. This isn't just about agriculture, it's about mindset. Saudi Arabia took its greatest weakness, endless desert, and turned it into a strength. They didn't wait for rain. They built oceans. They didn't wait for perfect conditions. They created them. One fish at a time. They're turning the desert green. And maybe, just maybe, that's what the future looks like.